Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. We got play of props up in this video for you guys. 6 games here on Friday to choose from. A lot of college basketball probably getting in the way of this NBA slate. Not loving the games that we have tonight in the matchups, but we still have plenty of value here with these play of props. As I said, we got 4 of them for you in this one. We also have best bets up, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page and continue to follow along with us all season. Also head to thelines.com, as I tell you every morning. Use that prop finder tool that we have under the NBA tab to make sure that you have that nice chart right in front of you with all of these odds and juice available to you so you can get the best ones back on all your bets. Nate, let's go ahead and kick things off with a pick we both like here. Wendell Carter Jr. and his boards, right?
Yeah, let's attack Toronto down low, please. And we'll take it with a guy who's just been a beast on the offensive glass lately. So over 8.5 rebounds for Wendell, minus 118. And once again, you can sprinkle a quarter unit plus 200 on the double-double, which he's averaging in his last 4 here, 11.8 points, 10.3 rebounds while playing just 27 minutes per game. So he is a high output guy when he's out there. He has 19 O-Rebs in those last 4, including 7 against the New York Knicks, a fantastic rebounding team. And Toronto is by far the worst rebounding team since the All-Star break, giving up a massive offensive rebounding rate to the opponent. I mean, part of that is just the front office intentionally trying to not be competitive, not win games here down the stretch so they can keep their draft pick. So they haven't been playing Pirtle. They haven't been playing Scotty Barnes, Boucher, RJ Barrett. All those guys are ruled out again. We're looking at Kelly Olynyk starting at center. And with him in there since the All-Star break, they're giving up 20 rebounds just to centers, 51 to everybody, and playing at a pretty fast pace, 101.5. So plenty of rebounding opportunities. Wendell, 7.7 of those 10.3 rebounds have been contested in that span, which is fantastic when you see somebody just like grabbing boards away from dudes. You won't have as much problem with that with Kelly Olynyk. That is the second most in the league in that span, by the way. But Kelly is grabbing 2.7 contested rebounds, and he has a career low 14.5% defensive rebounding rate since joining the Raptors. That is the worst in his career. He has not gotten more than 4 defensive rebounds at any point since the All-Star break. Now, Jonte Porter will get in there. Halftime, half of the game, I think, probably from Kelly. But, WCJ, his minutes are probably more going to match the starter in terms of Olynyk. And, Jonte Porter is not exactly a massive, formidable presence to worry about. We are still talking about a Raptors team that is just, again, not competitive down low and just playing wheeling and dealing, like fun run and gun style. That's why we like the over in this game, and I think there'll be enough rebounds to go around.
Yeah, that's the play. I think he's the rebounding prop in this one. I mean, you can consider Paolo as well, honestly, and maybe even Franz, which is a little bit lower. I think all 3 of those dudes are in line to dominate in this matchup. This is just what Toronto gives up the most of, and poor Kelly Olynyk is trying, I guess, but it's just really him down there. Doesn't even have guys like Chris Boucher around anymore, so there's not much to like in Toronto, and that's on purpose, as we know. Like you said, they're very much so tanking. So let me go to a game that we've talked about in the best bets video as well, which is that Utah Atlanta game, and I'm talking about Keontae George specifically. I know you took an SGP in that other video, which is I agree with as well. But I think there's a bit to go around here because I do have this total much higher, as I also mentioned in best bets, than it's listed at. So with Keontae George, I'm going to take both the points and assists. He's been good for 21.5, and it's 24.5 points and assists combined here. That's for some pretty bad juice. I would still take 25.5 if by the time you see this, there are no 24.5s left, but I think you can still get one for about minus 130. That's where I found it just maybe like 30 minutes ago. And I do see that rising because this is a good situation to attack, Atlanta and their backcourt. And I do think you're going to see DeJounte Murray on Colin Sexton a bit more. So there's really nobody left at that point in terms of that backcourt for Atlanta to feel good about guarding somebody like Keontae George. God bless them if it's, if you're seeing bogey on him at this point. So that's just going to be ripe. He's had 21.5 points per game, which is what I was starting to say over the course of the last 5, where he's, he played 4 of those games and a couple of them with Jordan Clarkson as well, who's out in this one and has been, taking up most of the shots away from guys like he and Sexton, especially when they play play at home, right? Like my one of my first thoughts was, oh, I happen to know that Jordan Clarkson has he mirrors the Utah Jazz in terms of his stark difference between home and away. Like this dude is just a monster at home and a usage monster at home. And he's not there in a home game for Utah, where I do like them to get around 117 to 118 by themselves. And in that case, without Lauri Markkanen, without Jordan Clarkson, you're talking about like 40, 30, 40 shots that are going to be available for these for other players at this point. I mean, when they play at home, especially, those two have combined for about 35 shots per game between them, and Clarkson's taking a large dose of those. So without Jordan Clarkson this season, Keontae's minutes have gone up, especially you've seen that in the last like 5 or 6, and since the All-Star break, it was made clear like Keontae George is the dude that we're going to make sure gets minutes now, and he's averaging 31 since that time, continues to get that usage, and his shot total already, in getting those 21.5 points, he's shooting very well from the floor. I will say that, and I don't know that he's going to shoot 50% from deep as consistently, but the Hawks are going to be just as weak out on the perimeter, honestly, even as much as they are down low, and it's something that I thought maybe they would show a little bit more, I guess, be more impressive, the Hawks down low on defense. But really, the only place that you see their bigs playing really well is on offense. They're still giving up a ton of offensive rebounds. They're giving up a ton of assists as well. And to the point guard position, like over the, they've been a bottom 10 team against them in scoring and assists basically since the All-Star break and a little bit before. And I mean, I'm not saying Trae Young was a defensive stopper in any way, but there was a little bit more pressure to at least score when you knew that the Hawks were a better scoring team. So the defense in this game, I don't expect to be impressive at all. And I do expect the pace to go back up a bit from the way it's dropped for Atlanta, especially over the last like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I almost don't care about the matchup when it comes to Keontae George. I care about the fact that the Jazz are sitting all their veteran guards and just seeing what they have in this kid, right? And just letting him spin. And he's soared over this prop in 3 straight in some tough matchups. The one he did not, he came down with an illness, then missed the next game. Right. Otherwise, yeah, this is against Miami. He went way past this. Against Denver, he goes way past this. Against Boston. Even if Atlanta is a middling defense now without Trae Young, which is an improvement, they are still not, I think, like one to be feared when it comes to just taking George and Sexton, who I think will soak up a ton of usage here in a game to target. So I'm going to go with our new guy here, Vasily Micic, over 18.5 points assists, which is only available at FanDuel. It's 19.5 other places. And I think you can just go with the 6.5 assists, which is also the best odds possible at FanDuel, nearly even money, whereas it's juiced up other places. Because, Trey Mann is back, but Micic is still very much the point guard. And we saw defined roles in their first game back together, where the Hornets are like, nah, let's let this guy keep running the team. He's clearly more of a true point guard, and he's been fantastic in that role. 7 this month, 15.5 points, 6.5 assists, and a 31.5% assist rate. He actually had a 66% assist rate the game before that against the Bucks, but he was still playing a part-time role, and he's just worked his way into a more steady role. In his last 3, 12 potential assists and only 6 assists per game. He has more than 6 assists per game on that. That was incorrect, NBA.com, but 12 potential assists, fewer than that actually. So even though the Hornets are kind of suck and are not going to hit a lot of his shots that he sprays out there, he's still getting enough potential to get over 6.5 pretty consistently. We're talking about a Suns team on a back-to-back here that has been most vulnerable against point guards. And in their last 15, allowing the 4th most assists to the position, also the 4th most threes. And Micic has found the NBA range here in his last 2. He's 8 for 11 from deep. So that's where a lot of the points are going to come from. If you are going to tack on the points here, he's just finding his role here. And the Suns on the road since the All-Star break, above average, 27 assists overall, 116 points. Who knows how locked in they're going to be after losing to the Celtics. Like they know they can get this win one way or another. And I don't think they're going to be charged up to stop Micic and the Hornets.
No, no, that is where I would put my money as well. Is that they are not going to try very hard. I don't think they're going to necessarily take anything out on them right after that loss to Boston. I don't know what you're supposed to do with Boston when they play like they did last night on offense, especially. I mean, if Tatum hit 4 threes in the beginning, I just, if anything, it's like we just want to go home, man. Like we don't want to be here anymore. That would be my understanding. And if you consider like what the schedule they have coming up too, like to call it even a look ahead game doesn't make sense. They would be looking ahead of it regardless of who their next opponent was, because their next opponent would almost have to be, one of like 2 or 3 teams that could possibly be worse than the Hornets at this point. But look, the Suns haven't stopped a point guard from and the main guy and the ball handler in the pick and roll. I talked about that yesterday as well. That's why I targeted Derek White, who crept over 4.5 assists for us. But Drew Holiday was the one with the 10 dimes there, which was wild yesterday. But either way, that is just more indicative of if you're the guy at the top and you're ever running pick and roll action as the ball handler, you're going to be probably pretty good to figure out how to get either a point or assist off of that, because the Suns have been terrible at defending that position. They're going to have to be better at that if they're going to do anything in the playoffs, which I don't think they will. Closing this one out with Clint Capella. And honestly, I always prefer going under with Clint Capella with like points and rebounds whenever I can in juicy situations, but this ain't it, right? Like even if with Walker Kessler out there, if he is out there, by the way, because he doesn't have props up, so I'm not positive that he's playing. I believe he's on the injury report, questionable. Maybe we can get back to you on that in 1 second. But just as importantly for Clint Capella is the fact that even when Walker Kessler's been out there, he's been an offensive rebounder, not a defensive rebounder. And it's almost like Spider-Man meme with Capella and Kessler at this point, where it's like, I won't get any defensive rebounds, but I will get all the offensive rebounds, and that's going to be the case for both these teams. It's partly why I think we both like the over, and I definitely really like it a lot. Without JJ and Jalen Johnson and Onyeka Okongwu, and I really do want Jalen Johnson to be out to feel just as good as ever about this bet, which is over 10.5 rebounds, by the way, and that's getting juiced down way to the over as well. So it's that minus 130 is the best price for that one. If you want 12 plus, you can get plus 115, I believe, still on FanDuel. That's where I was hitting it. So both of those are good to me in a game where I do think there's going to be a bit more pace than we might have been used to with Atlanta when they've been playing really slow paced teams as of late. And like I was saying, in the last 3 games, which have both been without Jalen Johnson and Okongwu, he's at 21.3 rebound chances and 13 boards per game in that time frame, playing a few pretty good rebounding teams as well, right? For when we look at who Atlanta's been playing as of late, we talk about how slow everyone is between Portland, New Orleans, Memphis, Cleveland, New York, but New York, Cleveland, even Memphis, and even Portland with DA in there, who's become like a rebounding monster. Wes Unseld all of a sudden is actually formidable, and CC is still out there averaging those 13 boards. So when you come in now against this Jazz team, like I said, John Collins doesn't really do it for me. Maybe a little, I don't know, how they used to go at each other in practice. We can see how that goes between Capella and John Collins, because Kessler's not even necessarily getting the minutes, right? He's only at about 21 minutes, only played twice over the last 6 games and averaged 21 minutes in that time frame. So I don't think they're really like excited to throw him out there when they're already just giving up on the season, are the Utah Jazz, right? With Jalen Johnson's a big part of this. So I just want to mention that as a really important point, which is, if he does play, like, okay, 10.5 is a little iffy for that crappy juice, right? Without him, I don't care about the bad odds on it. I would still love this at 10.5. But without him, he is averaging about 11.8 boards per game in 27.5 minutes. And with him, the 9.9 boards versus 24.5 minutes. So I think they do see him as really important for what they do on the offensive glass and defensive glass. But with Jalen Johnson not out there, who is basically, their second best rebounder always, and often their best rebounder when he's on the floor as the 5 in those small ball lineups. But it does seem questionable for him to play in a game where they are already giving up on this season pretty much for the Hawks. I think they're pretty much just like auditioning Capella and Jalen Johnson, right? Like, I don't know why they didn't take a pick for Capella already at the trade deadline, seeing where they're at, but he's still playing for another contract. And so with Atlanta, they allow a ton of rebounds to centers, but so do the Jazz, right? They're both in the bottom right now in terms of allowing centers to get rebounds, and Utah allowing the second most to them over the last 7. So yeah, everything just right for him to get a bunch of offensive boards. The points are a bit high for me when he doesn't create his own shots, but even that's at 12.5, and it's a number he's gone over pretty consistently.
Yeah, I mean, the Hawks haven't given up on the season, but they're also not going to lose their play-in spot, right? I mean, with Brooklyn and Toronto below them, it's just like, all right, we're just waiting on this. That's why they should be cautious with Jalen Johnson. And even if he plays, yeah, I would expect him to be at 25 minutes or so and not be a full go. looks like the same thing with Walker Kessler, who's not on the injury report, but just came back from a foot sprain and played like 19 minutes in his last game. Taylor Hendricks is questionable as well. So if we see Luka Samanic and Bryce Sensabaugh in there on the front court along with John Collins, yeah, I mean, Capella towers over those guys, and he should be geared up to guard Collins. He knows how to from practice, like you said. So I think he'll have a fine game here. And DeJounte can find him in pick and roll just like Trey used to.
Yeah, he does. He does fill in that role. The only thing they just run that pick and roll a little bit closer to the basket than with Trey. But you're right; it's still the exact same offense with DJM in there. So that is all the time we have for you in this one, though. Continue to follow along, subscribe to that page if you would. Also have those best bets up there as we do each and every weekday for you. So until we see you next, happy betting.